morning. I'd like the order, please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2.03, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0-0. To count who's out here. Item 2.04, establish agenda order, and the agenda stands as published. Item 2.05 is recognitions. We have Kate Gilbert coming up.
Good morning. I'm Kate Gilbert, Regional Assistant Superintendent for the Chesapeake and North County clusters. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing the board recognition. Before I begin, I would like to ask that members of the Board of Education and Dr. R. Lotto come forward. Mrs. Korbelak, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. Belgrove Elementary School may be one of Anne Arundel County's smallest elementary schools with just 265 students, but recently it vaulted into the national spotlight when it was named a National Title I Distinguished School for the 2014-15 school year. The school was honored for its sustained academic progress and is the only school in Maryland and just one of 38 schools across the United States to be honored this year. Title I is the largest federal aid program for school systems across the nation, and it is aimed at assisting schools in high poverty areas. More than 87% of Belgrove's students receive free and reduced price meals, the second highest among the county's 79 elementary schools and early childhood centers. Belgrove Principal Tamara Kelly, who is with us this morning, called the award a tremendous honor, not only for our school, but for our community. The socioeconomic status of children should not be a barrier to them achieving success. She continued, every day in our school, we work to instill a sense of pride and a belief in our children that they are in charge of their own destiny. And I am so very proud to be a part of a team that is helping to accomplish that for all of our children. Much of the school's renewed success is rooted in the wise and efficient use of funds. Belgrove receives about $450,000 a year in Title I funding. The school has used part of the money to fund parent outreach activities and to hire math and reading intervention teachers, along with teaching assistants to supplement the delivery of the curriculum. It has also invested in additional instructional materials for students and targeted professional development for staff. More than 84% of the school's students in grades 3 through 5 scored proficient or advanced on the Maryland School Assessment in reading last year. In mathematics, more than 83% of students achieved that same designation. As much as the money has helped, the beauty of Belgrove lies in its people. Ms. Kelly leads a staff of caring and committed people who stop at nothing to help the children succeed. The school is a shining example of what happens when adults focus on the potential of children and propel them to reach that potential. Ms. Kelly is joined, I believe, today by staff members, parents, and students. As they come forward, please join me in congratulating them on walking the bulldog path to success to become one of the nation's best Title I schools.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you want us to go back to the
Thank you. Thank you very much. Doing well? Good. Thank you.
Everybody else move.
I want you to spread out in front of them up there.
This is the center right here. Half of us.
Get our students forward, please, if you can just bring them and get real close together. Okay. And maybe one of them can hold the citation.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, you guys, with one. Okay, here we go. 3 photos. Looking this way, please. Big smiles. Everyone. Thank you.
Item 2.06, Educator of the Month, Ms. Chaudhry.
Today, the Board of Education honors an employee in our school system who gives her all both inside and outside of the classroom. Christine Dennis came to South River High just 3 years ago as a recent graduate from New York. She has taught Spanish levels 1, 2, and 3. Christine is always well prepared for her classes, incorporates a variety of language learning strategies, collaborates with colleagues, and infuses technology frequently. She has an excellent rapport with her students, and her classroom control is commendable. Outside of the classroom, Miss Dennis is a definite asset to South River. Last August, she conducted the new teacher orientation, and last fall, she co-presented the professional development to the faculty. Christine is one of the equity liaisons and serves as the co-sponsor of the school's equity and success teams, actively promoting cultural diversity in school. Through these teams, Christine organizes the school's multicultural fair, monthly celebrations of ethnic groups, and a culture-focused talent show called Cultural Palooza. Miss Dennis is passionate about instilling an understanding and acceptance of cultural diversity among the student body at South River High School. Christine Dennis is especially compassionate with South River's learning disabled students. As the teacher sponsor for the Unified Sports Program, it is truly remarkable to watch as she interacts with students who have disabilities. Anytime the school needs help in any role, Christine readily agrees to assist, whether it is chaperoning a dance, helping out at a sporting event in the stadium, or filling in for the cheerleading coach. She enthusiastically offers to lend a hand. Christine Dennis makes learning Spanish fun. She helps make students with disabilities feel a part of their school, and she shows a continued sense of school pride and respect for the cultural differences in South River's student body. Miss Dennis, the Board of Education is proud to recognize you today for your outstanding contribution to your students, colleagues, and entire school community. You maintain good relations with whom all you come in contact in your professional life, and you perform consistently with a high degree of professionalism. So for these reasons and more, the board congratulates you on your selection as Educator of the Month for March 2015. If you could please join me up front, I have a certificate for you. Here. Who else is here with you? And Mr.
Yeah.
So how did they lie to get you here?
Mr. Myers said it was for an equity meeting.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If our awardees can stay until after item 2.1, the CAC report, then we'll take some pictures. The next agenda item is 2.07, Employee of the Month, Mrs. Birch.
Thank you. Ask those with whom our Employee of the Month has worked over the years to describe her, and you're likely to hear a single word over and over again: excellence. Some people are trendsetters. Melanie Estes is a bar setter. She leads by example and sets a high standard for others to follow. Over the years, Melanie has worked in human resources, legal services, and curriculum and instruction. That vast experience has made her an encyclopedia of knowledge and a go-to person for any issue. She's also a key source for grammar questions, formatting questions, and correspondence questions. She knows the right way to do things and is eager to help others. Melanie never hesitates to take on a new task, and she does it with humor and grace, another of her hallmarks. She can accomplish so many tasks because people want to work with her. There simply isn't a person in AACPS who has asked Melanie for assistance and not received a 100% effort from her. She never hesitates to offer help and gives everything she can to any project. She's always ready and willing to volunteer for a project at any location, be it in the Parham Building, the Carver Center, or any other building where her expertise is needed. Melanie also goes way above and beyond the duties listed in her job description. She puts in time in the evenings, on weekends, in the early mornings, and on holidays, all without being asked, to ensure that every small detail is attended to and the project is a success. There is no one more positive than Melanie Estes. There also is no one more loyal. She believes in the mission of the school system, and there is no stone she will leave unturned when she sets out to accomplish a task. When it comes to creating a positive atmosphere and ambiance, no one is better than Melanie. With a style that rivals Martha Stewart, Melanie is a decorator and event planner extraordinaire. With an eye and a flair that is second to none, she is able to turn every luncheon, birthday party, or other event into a special occasion for everyone who attends. Melanie is a professional's professional. No matter the task at hand, she can be counted on to carry it out with the utmost focus on excellence. Her hallmark, quite simply, is that there's a right way to do things, and that way doesn't involve shortcuts. She is a perfectionist in everything she does, even organizing luncheons, and she expects coworkers to carry themselves in a way that reflects the importance of the job they are doing and the school system for which they are doing it. If Melanie is involved in a project, you can count on it being done on time, correctly, and with class. Melanie Estes, on behalf of the Board of Education, the Central Office team, and the students, staff, and teachers of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, we are honored today to recognize you as Employee of the Month for 2015. Please join me up front.
Because you're retiring.
Yes.
When are you retiring?
3 weeks.
Wow. Just in time. 3 weeks. Wow. Okay, well, here is a certificate for you and a bell.
Oh, thank you very much.
And who lied to you, and what did they tell you?
Oh, I'll tell you, there's a group in the administrative office that's really sneaky. You have to watch out. You get Debbie Navarro,
Okay.
Michelle Catania,
Uh-huh.
Kathy Kubik, my beloved boss, and Jill Smith, and you know you've got trouble.
Okay. So what did they tell you? Why did they want you here?
We were coming to recognize somebody else.
Oh.
Who is very, very deserving.
Okay. Okay. And who surprised you here? I noticed a few other people came walking in.
My sweet husband of 40 years, Chris. My brother, Bob. My sister, Barbara. My daughter, beautiful daughter, Alyssa, who is a teacher in Howard County. And my lovely niece, Laura, who is a teacher at Mayo. She teaches 5th grade and is expecting her first little one. So,
Well, that's wonderful.
Oh, and who else? I said Bob. You just didn't hear.
Well, thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, thank you.
And good luck with your retirement. Is your husband
you.
already retired?
No, he retires in May.
It's going to be a good summer, isn't it? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Item 2.08, Volunteer of the Month, Mrs. Nally.
Thank you. A vital element of Anne Arundel County Public Schools' success is the strong support of our business community partners. They understand the need for well-educated citizens, and through groups such as the Business Community Advisory Boards, BCAB, their business involvement serves as students' bridge between their school lives and future careers. Today, the Board of Education is pleased to honor one such community business partner, Mr. Lee Derrick. As our March Volunteer of the Month. He is the immediate past president of Southern High's Business Community Advisory Board, current BCAB treasurer, Rotarian, managing partner of Derrick Financial Group, and a proud AACPS elementary school parent. As BCAB president, Mr. Derrick implemented a portfolio project for freshman students. The group raised funds for the portfolios and, under Mr. Derrick's leadership, instructed the students about the impact a good portfolio can have on their future. With real-world examples, the students learned about choosing meaningful extracurricular and volunteer experiences and impressive portfolio artifacts. The program evolved into a college and career resource center at Southern High, complete with funding for a part-time staff member who assists students. Thanks to Mr. Derrick, Southern's successful mock interview program is now completely led by BCAB members and community business partner recruits. Beginning in their junior year, students interact with local business leaders who provide resume feedback and coach interviewing skills. Students learn how to dress for success, present themselves professionally, and write post-interview thank you letters. Business classes are enriched by Mr. Derrick's financial literacy presentations, and he ensures students understand and experience the importance of community awareness and service. He guides students' efforts to raise funds for the Bountiful Backpack Program, a community effort to alleviate hunger. Mr. Derrick serves as a liaison between the local Rotary Club and Southern's Interact Club. Through years of dedicated volunteering, this Southern High School alum has brought vital experiences to students that will continue to have a measurable impact on their lives and the greater Anne Arundel County community. I am so pleased to be able to present this to Mr. Derrick, as I was a member of South Anne Arundel County Rotary Club with Mr. Derrick some years ago, and the impact, and know personally the impact he has had on the entire community. Thank you, Mr. Derrick. Would you please come forward? With great appreciation, I would like to present this Volunteer of the Month certificate and bell to you.
And here's a Volunteer of the Month award. And as always, in addition to thanking you, how did they lie and get you here?
Well,
and who is here with you?
So we have Megan Renavich. She's a teacher at Southern. She told me that this award was going to go to Lynette, who also is very deserving of the award, and should be up here as well. Who is here? My family, Emma Kate and Will Derrick. They are students at Lothian Elementary, and they're are out of school today. They asked me this morning, are we going to school? Or are we out another 2 hours late or out of school because of the weather? My beautiful wife, Becca, my mom, Betsy Derrick, my dad, Rick Derrick, and my cousin and business partner, Steve Derrick. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I know all the Derricks from Hardry. They're all very active down there. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
2.09 School and Community Highlights. Ms. Ritchie.
Thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to mention that we had the honor the other day, last Friday, of going to Severn Middle School, where we honored 3 students from the Comptroller's Office has a program called the Maryland Masters Arts Program. There you go. And we honored 3 students, one from each grade level. One from the elementary student was from Broadneck, the middle school student was from Severn Middle School, and the high school student was from Glen Burnie High School. And you can see their artwork is up there. I mean, it's that the portrait with the tear, the one, not the hand over here. This was supposed to, the girl's picture here, the African American, was supposed to be a hand portrait. That was her class. And she took it beyond that and did a portrait. And then the other portrait here, we asked the girl how long it took her to do that. 3 hours. I'm waiting for like days, months, something, 3 hours. And then, of course, the young students' artwork, the flower pot up there is the elementary school student and stuff. It was absolutely excellent to be able to honor. These 3 pieces of artwork will be in the Comptroller's office. Governor Hogan and his wife, Yumi, who is a professor at MICA, was also there and had an opportunity to talk to the students. Fabulous. Great day to start off a snowy Friday morning. But and these students, they were just the little fella, I can't remember what his name was, but he was so cute and explaining his artwork and the different mediums. And so it was just, and Mr. Webb and Ms. Corbelak were able to join me. Dr. Arlotto, unfortunately or fortunately for him, had to be at a meeting, so he wasn't able to, and on the West Coast, so he wasn't able to get to enjoy this fun day with us, but it was fabulous. And some other elected officials showed up as well. It was terrific. I also had the opportunity to join with the superintendent for 2 of the visits where we made surprise visits for our Teachers of the Year finalists for the Anne Arundel County, and it's just fabulous. And the one teacher's room we went into, I was, the kids, they get all excited when the TV camera comes in. They think they're going to be on the news, and they get all happy and everything. And these kids were completely ignoring us. This teacher had this class so well controlled that they were not even paying attention to us. They were busy doing their work. And, we're trying to, talk to them about this, and they're like, I got no time for this, and they were doing their stuff. It was so funny to watch them, but they were really fabulous. And to be able to honor the teachers is just it's a great reward, and the other teachers in the building. Sometimes you think with stuff like that, rewards and things, but the people that were in the building and stuff, they were rushing in there. They wanted to be a part of this too, to be able to celebrate the excellence that we have going on in each and every one of our schools. So I thank you for the opportunity to go on that visit.
Ms. Chaudhry.
I would just like to call upon Molly Fitzpatrick to come up to the podium. Molly will be making an announcement on behalf of CRASC, which is the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils, and she will be announcing next year's SMOB finalists.
Good morning, President Nolly, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. My name is Molly Fitzpatrick, and as Aisha said, I'm the Secretary of the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils. Per the term of the newly revised CRASC election rules, nominees for the student member of the board may begin campaigning as soon as a public statement of their candidacy has been made. Since we have 3 finalists for this position, we didn't want to delay their campaigns any further. These students are available for questioning and may attend public events. Also, they may campaign via social media and give interviews. As of today, their campaigns have launched. I am pleased to announce that the following students will move forward to the election on April 8th and are officially candidates of the 2015 student member election. From Annapolis High School, Emily Balzano. From North County High School, Jacob Horskamp. And from Broadneck High School, Linda Waters. Thank you for allowing us to make this announcement, and please consider joining us for our student member of the Board of Education election at South River High School on April 8th. Thank you.
Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Ms. Korbelak. Friday, I had the pleasure of attending the Maryland Student Hockey League State 1A Championship held at the Ice House in Laurel, Maryland. A team comprised of students from Annapolis High School, Old Mill High School, St. Mary's High School, and Key High School, and coached by Chris Hinsvark, an economics teacher from Annapolis High School, battled the Blair Blazers from Silver Spring, Maryland. It was impressive. The skating skills I witnessed were very, very impressive. The power plays, it was definitely a game worth watching. And I would encourage anybody next year to go out and see these guys play. They do a wonderful job. But they won. They won the championship, and this is the second year in a row that they've won it. This is the first time that they've had back-to-back winner of this league since the league has been restructured. So I just wanted to extend my congratulations to all of the team and to Coach Hinsvark, and I look forward to seeing them play again next year, and I hope more people turn out to see them play. They have a very raucous crowd there already, but it never hurts to have more people come out to see them. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Ms. Korbelak. I'll be quick. I just wanted to add two notes. One to Miss Melanie Estes. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is I think the first 4 years, I guess it was, that I was on the policy committee. You provided a great deal of support to the entire committee, to myself, and answering questions and so forth. And so as you go off and right off into retirement, congratulations to you. And on behalf of the policy committee, thank you for your service specifically to the policy committee, because we appreciated it and couldn't have done it without you. The second piece has to do with Lee. Mr. Derrick. Mr. Derrick, he really, truly does give of his time, not just to the business community, but also just to the recreation community of South County. I served as his assistant coach, he might call it, unofficially, as part of the soccer athletic South County Youth Association. And so, again, I just wanted to highlight and to say thank you very much for what you have done in all the different aspects down in South County. And my little Brady Harrison wouldn't be the soccer player that he is without his good coach. So thank you very, very much, Derek.
Dr. Arlato.
Thank you. I just wanted to let everybody know that we had, as we do every year, we host the county's spelling bee, and it includes students from not only the public schools but the private schools are welcome to enter. This year's, and every year we want to get better at what we do, and this year was just phenomenal. Under the leadership of Carol Ann McCurdy and her entire team, as well as Susan Kassler, a teacher at Crofton Middle School, who took the lead in putting this together. For those of you that did know about it, I'd be surprised, because as you see from the picture, this room was completely full. It grows every year. We may have to talk to the Comcast Center next year about hosting it, because the numbers grow and grow and grow. It is just a fantastic event. It was incredibly well organized. It was incredibly well attended. And we truly, as Anne Arundel County Public Schools, are honored to continue to sponsor that event. So I just want to thank Carol Ann and Susan and their team. They did a fabulous job, so thank you.
The only thing I have to add is that Mr. Jackson and I had the chance to attend the County Dance Festival program in Annapolis High on the 20th of February, and the talent was just phenomenal. Our county really rocks out the dance program, I'll have to say. It was very impressive. All ages, elementary through high school, from all different schools. So thank you for those who put that on. Our next item is 2.10, the CAC report, and we actually don't have a CAC report today because they got snowed out on Monday, or iced out, I guess, on Monday. So we're going to take a break for about 10 minutes to take some pictures, and we'll be back for public comment. right, we're going to move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during the public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion, not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. I don't have any completed cards today, but is there anyone who wishes to address the board at this time? Okay. Somebody said sweet. Mr. Benford?
He's blaming the students.
So we'll move on to action items. Item 4.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Olato, your recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
Second. All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0-0. Item 4.02, personnel. Dr. Olato?
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Second. All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0-0. We have 6 policy revisions up today for second reading, items 4.03 through 4.08. I'm going to read the names of the policies. None of them had any public comment during the second reading.
We actually did have one public comment that was received after the board exhibit went out for opening and patriotic exercises. There was a question about a clarification as to the law that was being referenced in the policy, and that is posted on our website with their comment and our response.
Okay, so these are all information items. The first policy revision, second reading, is eligible riders, code EAA. We have 4.04 policy student transportation, code EA. We have policy assignment and or transfer of students to a school, JAB. We have community use of schools and facilities, code KC. We have board executive sessions, code BCC, and we have the opening and patriotic exercises, code IKA. So I will take board questions or comments. Are there any on the first one on the list, eligible riders? Ms. Ritchie?
I just have a question on page 3 of the regulations, number 9, when it talks about the measuring of distance. When this was originally written, we didn't have the safety concerns that we have now, and so students were kind of like any doors and things wherever they were. My question has to do mainly with the way it's written for the door that we're going to enter in. And the reason I bring that up is we've had some people who've had issues with that their child enters one door, but we measure from another door, which makes the distance longer, shorter, something like that. So most students have to all enter in through the front door at this time, I think, don't they? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's different from each school. And I just wonder if when we're measuring this, and this may not go into regulations, it may be in the procedure pieces that they do for the measurements and all, that we talk about the door that the students enter.
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Alex Shekno, Chief Operating Officer. Let me explain to you in practice and what the intent is. So it says to the closest facility entrance door. It doesn't say the closest door. All of our buildings have many, many, many doors. Every school has a unique set of operations in terms of how they run that facility. Much of it is predicated because of the design and the layout of the school, and much of it is predicated upon the decisions that the administrator makes. So there are some schools that because of the way they're designed, the way that the topography is situated, and the way the principal manages that building, that the main entrance door, that singular public entrance door, is the only door in the facility that the students arrive and depart from. In that case, that is the door we measure to. There are other schools, because of the way that they're designed and the way that the communities are designed, have more than one designated entrance. There are many schools that have walkable areas behind the schools and have pathways designed for the community, for example, behind. Those schools function in a manner that they then have 2 points of entrance. They will have an official entrance in the front, and they will have an official entrance in the back where they assign staff members to keep those doors open, monitor the doors, make sure the youngsters are escorted across the property and into that door. In that case, so we give the folks the benefit of the doubt, Ms. Ritchie. So if the building has 2 official entrances, we will take that measurement to both of those official entrances to give the parent and the youngster the benefit of the doubt. So it is unique to each school, and the way it was written was we didn't say door, we said entrance, and that is the entrance that's designated and purposely used by that school as an official entrance point for the students, and we will measure it to both one or both or as many official entrances they have to, again, try to give the parent and the youngster the most leeway possible.
Yeah, because the argument that we had was that we were measuring to the front door, and their student entered, like you said, on the side door because it was a walking path, and so the school led up to that, and so that was their argument. We were measuring to the front door, not the door that the student actually entered into.
Right. And I won't go into the specifics of that, but it was.
I know
they wanted it at a random door, but that random door was not
they
an
wanted
official
to be further away.
point.
I understand. I know because it was, but I'm just saying. So I'm saying in the instance here that when you have something that says, we know that this is the door we're entering because we're going to the door that the student enters through, not just any arbitrary. We're not using the main door if in fact the students enter through the back door when they're walkers.
Yes, ma'am. We want to give again the parents and the community the benefit
That's
of the
just
doubt.
what I wanted to clarify,
to the extent
and I understand
possible.
that piece, but.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any public comment on the eligible riders policy? Okay, are there any board questions on the student transportation services policy? How about public comment? Okay. Board questions or comments on the assignment and or transfer of students to a school? Ms. Ritchie?
And this is the policy part, page 2, numbered or letter D, where it says child care. Should it be, because we've talked about this before and about the the transfer and stuff, should it be documented hardship? I mean, when you say D, yeah, page 2, D, yeah.
So you want to say childcare with a documented hardship to be consistent with
because that would be
out-of-area
consistent,
transfers.
or reference the policy or something like that. I'm just saying because we've really talked about the fact that it has to be a documented hardship. It just can't be willy-nilly.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Okay. Is there any board questions or comments on community use of school facilities policy? I actually have one myself. Really in the regulation, page 4, item 2I, we say that during the first 5 years of usage, they should pay the religious organizations will pay the commercial rate for the use of facilities, excluding the room usage fee. And then we've added the unless they have no intentions of building a church and moving out of an AACPS facility. I'm just wondering how we could really even police that. I think we're almost encouraging religious groups to say that they're building a facility, and then 5 years later, oh, we're not. Do we just want to say for the first 5 years, it's that rate?
For the record, Alex Checknose, Chief Operating Officer, they are required to submit a letter annually attesting to their intentions, essentially. So it's subject to an annual re-evaluation renewal process, and they are on their letterhead and sign. They essentially have to send a letter annually declaring their intentions to us.
Okay. And I know that we've taken out reference to fees on page 3 of 7 and referring everybody to the community use of school facilities. Should we just lump all of the fee discussions into that manual, like refer the religious use also back to that community use of schools facilities manual?
Yes, we can do that.
And
We'll move all the fee. This language was a result of the discussion that happened last time, just to clarify exactly what was going on with the religious use of our schools. But certainly, since the fees are all going to be in the manual, we can clean up this to just put the fee structure in the manual as well.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on the community use of school facilities policy? All right. Are there any board questions or comments on the board executive sessions policy? Is there any public comment? And the last one on second reading, are there any questions about opening and patriotic exercises policy? Any public comment? Okay, so those will now go to third reading in a month?
At the next board meeting.
Board meeting. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. So we're now on item 4.09, first reading for performance evaluation and rating policy GBH. And you have a presentation.
Yes. The Office of School Performance, the Instructional Data Division, the Division of Curriculum and Instruction, and the Division of Human Resources bring policy GBH, Evaluation and Ratings Unit 1 to you for first reading. This policy was last updated November 7th, 1990, and the policy and its company regulation are being revised to reflect our current practices, which were changed to comply with the Education Reform Act of 2010 and its supporting regulations from the Maryland State Board of Education. This policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and Ms. Herbert, our Associate Superintendent for School Performance, is going to provide a brief overview of the rating tool for teachers and administrators, and the administrators piece is relative to the next policy, but she'll cover both of them now, and then we'll answer any questions you have about this policy.
Good morning, Dr. Arlotto, Mrs. Korbelak, and board members. For the record, Kathy Herbert, Acting Associate Superintendent. Thank you. And as Jessica shared, we've been asked to take a few minutes to share information with you about the TPE, Teacher Principal Evaluation Instrument, that we use here in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. The purpose of the form, of course, is to elevate all students and eliminate all gaps. And with that form, there are two components. The first component, which amounts for 50%, is the professional practice side of the instrument. You probably are familiar with there are 6 domains, and they are parts of an evaluation that we have used in the past in evaluations. For example, in the teacher evaluation instrument, it measures instructional planning, planning for learning, student behaviors, assessment, professional practices, terms that I'm sure you're familiar with. The other half of the performance instruments are the SLOs, Student Learning Objectives, and that is new to all educators. The Student Learning Objectives are specific long-term goals for groups of students that educators create to guide their instructional and their administrative practices. They focus on a particular student group and are based on data for those students. To expand that a little further, the writer of the SLO identifies strategies of how to improve student achievement for that particular student group. They identify a target, they identify the assessment measures, they identify the specific interval of time they're going to give instruction, and then they identify how they're going to measure if they have met that target. Every educator, teachers, and principals write and implement 2 SLOs each year, and that results in 50% of their evaluation. This component is new to our educators. Therefore, as a system, we have provided very comprehensive professional development to help educators as they implement SLOs. Some examples of the professional development that has been done for our instructional leaders is professional development for reading teachers, for coordinators, for school facilitators, for school performance coaches. We also train SLO coaches in every one of our schools, and they help provide the training for professional development for our teachers. Assistant principals have been trained, principals have been trained, and it is ongoing. As recently as February, we provided professional development for all our principals, elementary, middle, and high, at their February leveled meetings, because it is new for everyone and it's a journey. We also provided professional development as a system on our early dismissal days to make sure that everyone receives that training. There's a resource for educators on the TPE model, which includes, of course, the SLOs. And that resource is a TPE website. And on that website, you'll find a manual, you'll find webinars on how to write SLOs, and you'll find samples of approvable SLOs. We also partner with MSDE on providing professional development. As recently as this morning, I attended a MSD professional development on TPE with teachers, principals, and executive officers from around the state, and Anne Arundel County is well represented, and that's continuing as we speak. So you can see it's a journey, and we will continue to focus on how we will use the TPE evaluation instrument to help build our teachers and our administrators to provide the most quality, effective instruction that they can in our classrooms. Thank you.
Mrs. Nally.
This was brought to my attention when I was at MABE, and is possibly a question for maybe for Flory, but I don't know. Do we have a position description for Unit 1 employees? In other words, and if we do, what part does that job description have play in this rating? We were speaking to some other reps at MABE, and their concern is that in many of the counties there is for all other employee groups, but there's really not a position description tied, and Howard, for example, is working on this now, as are some others. So I guess that's my question, because I was kind of surprised, and Stacy was with me at this meeting at MABE, and we were both, just kind of surprised that many counties do not have that a position as description. So that's my question. Do we have it? And if we do, what part would it play?
We do, and Jessica wants to take this one.
Or Dr. Arlotto, did you want to weigh in?
Well,
he knows the answer to it.
I do think that it's important for the board and all to understand that as we go through the TPE process, this is something that came down through Race to the Top. This is something that's come down through the state. We are not the only jurisdiction that's doing new TPE. All the jurisdictions are rewriting their teacher principal evaluations, short of two of our colleagues here in the state. And the way the federal piece was written and then down through the state and to the LEAs only includes teachers and principals. So as we write the new evaluation system, it is for only teachers and principals, where there are many other, as you well know, Unit 1 employees like counselors and others. And we are continuing to rate them as we have, evaluate them as we have in the past, and eventually we can see bringing them online. But in order to meet the mandate, we've been focusing strictly on teachers and principals. And then I think Jessica can add to that.
And just to clarify, Unit 1 is an overarching defined term in the negotiated agreement with TAC. That defines who is in Unit 1. And this policy is meant to cover all of Unit 1. However, the TPE specifically that has the 50% professional practices and the 50% student achievement portions, that is particular to classroom teachers and some other identified positions in COMAR. So it's specifically scripted in COMAR as to what positions fall into that particular tool. And if you go on our website, we have it broken down into every position that's in Unit 1, because Unit 1's overarching includes a lot of different positions, and what tool they use for each position. So I'm hoping that helps. So there wouldn't be a job description just for Unit 1, because that includes... Okay.
Let's just say for teachers, is there a specific job description as there is for other, when you go to interview? Is it written in our, do we have one?
Yes.
Yes. Flory's nodding yes.
Yes.
I'd like to see it. I've never seen a job description. I mean, I was only a teacher for a few years.
I'm sure that...
I've never seen my job description. I've never seen my job description. Oh, thank you. But I've never seen a job description, unless it just says everything. Because that's what teachers do.
Good morning. For the record, Flori Bazzella, Executive Director of Human Resources. For every position, there is a job description that reflects that position title. So if you would like to see job descriptions, you could tell me elementary teacher, teacher mathematics, school guidance, school counselor, pupil personnel worker. There is a job description for every position that we have. So I'd be happy to share with you whichever ones you would like to see. But if you work for us, we have a job description associated with your title, and we can provide that to you.
Yeah, I think I would. I think for one thing, there are other counties, apparently from our meeting yesterday, that do not have that. And she asked us, would we share them, because they're working on job descriptions. Isn't that what you understood? And they were asking. So yeah, but not for count. I would like it for teachers across the level. Now I know when you're looking at elementary, that's one, and then you're looking at math and science. And I don't know. Do you think she wanted secondary? Yeah. Probably.
At the secondary level, they're by content area. Mm-hmm. So we have for the content area.
Yeah, that would be good. And then we could share them with two, and we could look at them. I'm just interested to see what it says.
Yes, we'd be happy to provide that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Ritchie.
When all these things happen, everything kind of happens together. And like when No Child Left Behind came in, there was a lot of stuff that happened, and it seemed like they were all tied in. Are the SLOs related to the Common Core? Are they dependent on the Common Core, or will they, when, in 5, 7, 10 years, when we throw out Common Core and bring in something else, which is, what all professions do, so it's not saying just education, will SLOs still be there, or are they related to the Common Core?
And teachers and administrators write 2 new SLOs each year. Right. And each time they go to develop an SLO, they identify the area of need for a student group. So this year they most likely will pick a standard. But next year it could be whatever instructional is driving instruction at that time. And so each year when you rewrite them, you'd pick a new focus area.
And it's a lot of data driven, and as we gather more data because of the assessments and because as we implement these things, as we gather more data, then that may change because we may see, specific things change. The question that comes, and I just was wondering, because, sometimes when new stuff comes in, it all seems to be lumped into one thing. So the other piece of that is a lot of talk over the years related to teachers being evaluated on the growth of students and the inability sometimes to control things beyond our control. We can't control that they ate a good meal. We can't control that they got enough sleep. We can't control that they did their homework. And so when we talk about the 50% that's related to the data piece, what's taken into consideration? Is it, if I don't have any clue because I've never written them. I don't even really know what they look like. And so this completely is off. But if I say that 35% of my male students are going to be reading at a 3rd grade level, and that's not, but I only get 20% of my students instead of the 35, then am I marked down because of that, or do we look at some of the factors that may have occurred because that occurred? For instance, did I get more male students in there throughout the year after this one was written? Did we have incidences where I had students that were some severe behavior issues that caused a lot of disruption in the classroom at a certain period of time that we were working with, but I wasn't able to move that student out, and so therefore it caused everything to kind of back up. Things that can happen on a regular basis. Do we look at that kind of stuff as well, or do we just say, well, you said 35, you only got 20, you get demerits?
Couple things. SLOs are scored on a scale of 0 to 3, so you get points depending on whether you didn't do one, whether you didn't quite meet the goal, whether you met the goal, whether you exceed the goal. So that you're scored on that way. But the SLO is collaboratively developed and approved between the teacher and the principal, or the principal and the regional. And throughout the interval of instruction, they collaborate and talk about, okay, where are they and how are we doing? I would have to say, though, that regardless of whatever factors there are, we want students to learn.
Oh, most definitely.
And so that's we set that goal for all students. but there is an opportunity to discuss and collaborate on that SLO throughout the process. There's actually a midpoint for that discussion.
Yeah. I mean, we just know that there are certain things beyond our control. There are things that happen within. I mean, if your student isn't reading well and you rely on the parents to help you to read at night with the student, to help them. I mean, because that's part of our job as parents as well. I mean, you can't leave everything up to expect them to learn everything in the 6 hours that they're in the school building. We have to take a part of that as well. And if I'm not taking my kids to the library, or I'm not helping them to read at night, or if I'm not helping them with their homework, that's going to directly impact some of the things that are going on, because they don't get that extra, whereas if I'm the parent who is, I mean, and that's just, it's not fair. The teacher may be doing everything they possibly can, but if there's some components in there. Now, I know you're also not going to write them that are unrealistic either. I mean, you're not going to say 95% of the students when we know that that's not going to happen. We may get to that goal, but we're going to build them in increments so that they move up. That's just been a major concern that I've heard a lot of, and I wouldn't want people to be rated on things that are beyond their control. I don't disagree with this at all, because I believe that you have to have some kind of measurement, and as the data improves, we'll have better abilities. But I hope that and like you said, it's a collaborative thing. It's not being used as a punitive thing. And in some cases, I think it can be more beneficial, because it's not necessarily based on whether I get along with my principal or not, because the data is the data. So.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Herbert, Superintendent, thank you very, very much for taking a few minutes to address the SLO. We talked a little bit about this at the Policy Committee, and I appreciate the board indulging the staff in conversation a little bit about this SLO, because I think it's important. Our staff, as I said at the Policy Committee, our staff is putting in a lot of time developing this thing called student learning objectives. And so I wanted to make sure that the community understood that, as well as the board took some time to recognize that. For the Navy, terminal objectives and enabling objectives for a course that you're building and later down the road you're taking is something that's not new. We have been doing it in Navy training for a very, very long time. Ensuring that objectives are appropriately stated is critical to ensuring that you know what you know when you come in to start a course, and then when you finish a course, what that course should have taught you, and then did you get it as a student. And so I appreciate you all taking the time. I appreciate you addressing this idea that there is collaboration, and that there is a formal midterm counseling piece of this, and there's continuous collaboration in this process, both of teacher to administrator and administrator to senior administrator, that's not necessarily in the building every day, and that relationships are going to be the key to making sure that this is successful as we move forward. I also would ask and would hope that we don't, as things continue to evolve, that we don't continue to wait. 1990 was the last time we touched this policy and regulation. You do the math, that's 2000, 2010. It's been 25 years. 25 years since we've touched this policy and regulation. And same way, somewhat similar with the next one that we're going to somewhat talk about. We've got to make sure that we're responsive a little bit more and a little bit better at addressing these very important things as we move forward over the next several years and decades. Thank you.
Mrs. Ritchie?
I forgot. I went on number 4 where it talks about observations. It says formal and informal, and I don't really see a definition of what informal is. And does that calculate into the observations as well? And so could you define that for me?
Yes.
And how that all factors in?
Certainly, informal and formal observations are part of the evaluation process, as is any interaction between the supervisor and the supervisee. Generally, informal observations are observations where they are not scheduled, where the time and the date is not necessarily identified, where an administrator could come in a classroom and observe a teacher for 30 minutes. They generally therefore do not require written lesson plans, whereas on a formal evaluation, the time and the date are often identified and a written lesson plan is required.
But does the informal one calculate into the formal one?
Yes, calculate in that certainly they are part of the evaluation process. There is no score.
Right.
Which,
And the reason I
which comes
mention
to mind
that
with
is because,
calculating.
one of the things that we've done in this county that I truly appreciate is the leveling, so that one school isn't doing something different than another school is doing, and that we're consistent in the way that we do things, where that has not always been the past history of our school system. So when you say informal, you mentioned 30 minutes. Well, do we have a definition? I mean, it's one thing to pop in the classroom for 5 minutes just to kind of see something going on, but is that considered an informal one? Or is there a defined amount of time that we consider to be informal?
Yes.
That would work towards it. And I understand about administrators and stuff, because if you're going down the hallway and something catches your eye or hear something, you may pop in because it excites you or because it concerns you. So you may pop into the classroom just to kind of to get an idea of what's going on. That may not be considered an informal one.
Yes, for an observation to be considered a formal or informal observation, it has to take place for at least 30 minutes. We do encourage our administrators.
30 consecutive minutes.
Yes, and we do encourage our administrators to pop in and out of classrooms every day, of course.
I don't know whether that's written someplace.
It's part of the negotiated agreement,
Okay.
and we very much respect what's in that negotiated agreement,
That's
and that
fine.
helps us bring consistency to what goes on in the
I
schools.
just like to be able to reference people, because when they say, I'm all about it's good for one, it's good for all. So, but if they have an opportunity to know where that information is. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on performance evaluation and reading unit 1? Okay, so this will now go to our website for 30 days for public comment. Item 4.10, also a first reading, performance evaluation and ratings for unit 2, policy GBI.
The Office of School Performance, the Instructional Data Division, the Division of Curriculum and Instruction, and the Division of Human Resources bring policy GBI, Evaluation and Rating Unit 2 to you for first reading. This policy was last updated November 7th, 1990, and like the previous policy, it is being updated to reflect our current practice and comply with the Education Reform Act of 2010. It will be posted on our website for 30 days, and we welcome any questions you have about it.
No questions on this one from up here. How about any public comment? Okay, that will go on the website for 30 days as well. 4.11, the policy formulation of administrative regulations CF.
The superintendent brings policy CF, formulation of administrative regulations to you for first reading. This policy was last updated October 16th, 1989. Is being updated to provide an updated process for the issuance of administrative regulations. The policy will be posted on the website for 30 days for public comment, and we welcome any questions you have about this policy.
No questions from us. Any public comment? Okay, the last policy of the day. Student Nutrition Services Whole School Policy EB.
The Division of Food and Nutrition Services and the Office of School Performance bring policy EB to you for first reading. This policy was last updated July 12, 2006, and the updated policy addresses student nutrition standards for the entire school environment. This policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and we welcome any questions you have about it.
Mrs. Ritchie?
Well, this seems to be a real bugaboo with the people down in Annapolis related with all this nutrition stuff. And so when I was reading the policy, it talks about the nutritional content and nutritional standards. And I know that whenever you go into restaurants, you can look and you can see all the things posted and stuff like that. In our policy, we reference that, but we don't reference to where people can go and see this information, which I know is on our website. So it may be beneficial to either say that in there or something like that so that they know that we have a standard place they can go to. Does it say it on the
I believe it does. For the record, Jody Rissy, Supervisor of Food and Nutrition Services. Ms. Ritchie, if you go to page 2, number 11,
okay,
that's where we just talk about the nutritional values of all of our food and beverages sold.
Right.
Are provided to parents, students, and I guess we.
Okay, that's the. I mean, I saw that, but provided to when I go to the restaurant or when I go to McDonald's or wherever I go, I see it right there posted. So. But it's not posted necessarily in the schools. I mean, it's it's on the packages, but there is a link on our website that parents can go to and can find the content of anything and everything. And so I think that maybe it would be beneficial to reference, because when you say provided to, well, I want it, but where do I find it? Do I call you? You know?
No, I think it's a very valid point, and as we talked about with some legislation we had last board meeting, we're very proud of the website that a School and Nutrition Services maintains, so I think we should, promote it in this regulation and list it there, so we'll add that.
Yeah, because I went and looked it up and saw where it was, so, just to make sure that it was, and it's easy to find, it's right there on the website, but that sometimes people don't necessarily, some of us of the older generation don't necessarily do that. Okay, let me put it that way. Younger people, they know right away and they're flipping onto it, but it's just, I think, good to know.
Mrs. Birch.
I actually don't have a question because I was at the policy committee meeting, but I wanted to answer a question that others might have because I had it, which was when it talks about fundraisers and what can and can't be sold, because I think this is a big deal. This would be the question that most people would have if they looked at this. And what could be sold and what can't be sold, because it requires everything to meet nutrition standards. When I asked about this, and so many schools do fundraisers of like Claire's Gourmet and Cookie Dough and Joe Corby's Pizza and things like that, the answer is they can still be sold because those things aren't being sold for consumption at school. As long as things are being sold for consumption at home and not at school, they don't have to meet the nutritional standards that are required of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. So there's no problem with the fundraisers. So that was my big concern. It may be other people's as well, so I just wanted to put that out there. So, and my kids are excited about the whole grain white tortillas possibly coming back for tacos.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Reese. Can you take just a few seconds to talk about the macro piece of this and the federal law that's upcoming, the renewal of that, and how that plays into our policy, local policies and regulations? Just a brief. You did that at the policy committee, but I would appreciate that for the community and for the board.
I'd be glad to. The National School Breakfast and School Lunch Program falls under the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act 2010, which is a federal fundated program. It's up for reauthorization every 5 years. So in 2015, it will be up for reauthorization with a big focus on the health and the well-being of our wellness policies, what we do in student nutrition services, and what we do in schools throughout the whole day into 30 minutes after the bell rings. So the focus will be on nutrition, on physical activity, on our parent piece, on our external partners, and how we best can fuel our students to learn and achieve.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Mrs. Nally?
First, and maybe I don't know, can they still have, speaking about fundraisers, I can remember, and I don't know if schools still do it or not, but they do like a pancake breakfast or they do a spaghetti dinner. Now, is that still allowable, but there are restrictions at school?
That would happen after the school day, so it is allowable. They do have to follow Department of Health regulations, and that's stated in that the community facilities use guidelines.
So that's why I know they end up having, try to have
an approved serve safe person from our staff.
Exactly. So that's still true.
That is.
Okay. And the other thing I had has nothing to do with the policy, but I want to thank you and your staff for the delicious, nutritious breakfast that they provided for the school board this morning. And he's holding his up. And I will tell you, after being retired as long as I have, this is just phenomenal, Jody, what you have done. And I think there's still a lack of understanding or a belief that the school breakfast is, aren't well received at times. And when I look at the zucchini bread and I look at Kevin trying his first new vegetable today. What were those things? Yeah, the watermelon and I think, and they were delicious. And I think this is what our children are getting in the morning for breakfast. So much more nutritious, that I just want to thank you personally for everything you've done and for our kids and for Anne Arundel County Food Program. Thank you. and
Thank
it was
you.
delicious.
Thank you for the support. I have a great team and great support here, so thank you.
Dr. Arlato.
Thank you. Ms. Nally, thank you. You stole my thunder. I just wanted to say thank you to Jody and your team. Truly phenomenal work that you do on behalf of our children, our community. For those of you that don't know, we recently went through, Jody's team, our food service, nutrition service program went through an extensive state audit, and not only passed with flying colors, but as the state organizers of food nutrition services for MSDE sat with me in my conference room and told me that we are a model around the state, and that is, it was a Jody Reese Love Fest as well. It should have been. She is phenomenal at what she does. Her team works incredibly hard because of her leadership and their caring and nurturing of the children. We thank you for that.
And I was going to thank you for my rainbow of vegetables this morning. I didn't know it was a watermelon radish, so now I know. Thank you. Are there any public comments on school or student nutrition services policy? All right, so that will also be on the website for 30 days. The next item on the agenda is 4.13, Georgetown East Elementary School Stormwater Management Inspection and Maintenance Agreement. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? So moved. All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the approval of the Georgetown East Elementary School Storm Water Management Inspection and Maintenance Agreement.
Second.
Is there any board discussion? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 700. Item 4.14, Eastport Elementary School Stormwater Management Inspection and Maintenance Agreement. This is also an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the approval of the Eastport Elementary School Stormwater Management Inspection and Maintenance Agreement.
Second.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 700. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, 4.15, is the Monarch Central Contract School Agreement. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the approval of the attached contract addendum.
All those in favor? Oh. Comments? I know. And like Richard, we're trying to get out of here, right? Is there any board discussion on this? Any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 700. Thank you. Item 4.16, items of legislation. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? We now have an action item. Ms. Cutchess.
Jessica Cutchess, Legislative and Policy Counsel, for the record. We are going to start with Section 1 as we normally do with this exhibit and go through and ask for your position on different bills. Starting with the first bill, House Bill 119, Construction Contract Clauses, Change Orders. Essentially, this bill would prohibit the issuance of owner-initiated change orders during construction unless the price, terms, and conditions are agreed upon in advance among the owner and the contractor or subcontractor. This could have a negative effect of affecting the timelines in which our school projects for construction are completed, and in some cases could affect the opening of school if it's a school that has to be completed before school opens. And for that reason, we ask that you oppose this bill.
Mrs. Ritchie.
When when we do all the bid processes and stuff like that, we have things in terms in the contracts that talk about if something or X or Y happens and how these things would come back to us. I mean, so it's not like we're just going out there and saying we're going to pay you $10,000 to do this, and then they come back and say no, we need 30 because we hit a power line and we didn't know was there or something like that. I mean, this is already all in the talked about and agreed upon in the bids and processing, right?
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Alex Sheknov, Chief Operating Officer, and that is absolutely correct. It's all very prescriptively outlined within the term and conditions that are part of our bid packages, part of the contracts that are executed and signed by all parties agreeing to those terms and conditions. So it's very transparent what the rules of the game are and what our intentions are.
And we have somebody in-house who oversees. I mean, we may have a site coordinator, but there's somebody within our facility that is intimately involved with all of our major and minor rebuilds and, things that are going on. I mean, so it's not
basis.
So it's not like we would be like, ooh, surprised because something happened. We'd know about it the moment they know about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And has it happened very often? I mean, it happens.
Very often, no, but I believe that's what Ms. Kutches spoke to, is there are occasions in the field where things happen. I mean, especially on a renovation project, you can discover after peeling the earth away from an exterior wall, you find that it's been underground for, 65 years. You find a very perilous crack, possibly, or something that's that requires immediate attention. Well, the point is, it requires immediate attention, and our folks partner with the contractor and say, let's shore this up immediately, let's address the immediate concern, and we'll, later today when things calm down, we'll worry about the price. What this legislation would do would be sort of flip the order and say, oh, well, let's not address the immediate concern that could be a safety matter or a scheduling matter or whatever. Let's go talk about it and haggle over the price, and once we get to that point in time, we'll come back and address the safety concern or scheduling concern, et cetera. So I did find out, just for the members of the board, as recently as this morning, Dr. Lever of the State Public School Construction Program has also crafted testimony to be submitted to the committee that will be hearing this. So the State of Maryland Public School Construction Program and IAC are also opposing the legislation before you.
Mrs. Birch.
Just a quick question. Does this apply to all construction contracts in the state or just public construction contracts? I mean, how broad is this?
So there is some room for interpretation there. Clearly, it would be applicable to State of Maryland projects across the board.
Right.
So there's no question there. There is a little bit of a legal nuance about, since we are a de facto state agency, whether it crosses the lines to public schools. The state IAC is concerned enough that they are putting testimony in opposition to this. Certainly, it's not clear to us, and we'd rather take a defensive posture as opposed to leave it to an interpretation later down the line.
The word owner to me was kind of unclear.
Right.
And because usually they would say the state if they meant the state. And
Mr. Shiknovich is correct. Even across the LEAs, there's some discrepancy as to whether this will definitely apply to us or not. And the way that Mr. Lever appropriately addressed it was, if this were to apply to school systems, we would oppose. And we think that the bill needs to be clarified if it was not intended to apply to school systems. So we would follow that lead in our efforts regarding this bill.
Is there any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0.
House Bill 502, State Department of Education Financial Advisory Board establishment. This bill establishes a financial advisory board in the Maryland State Department of Education to assist the state superintendent in making preliminary assessments of MOE waiver requests. So essentially, it would be a board to look at when the county has asked for a waiver from MOE. They would provide a public document to say, this is what we're advising the state superintendent to do. It seems like an additional layer of advice that sort of takes a little authority or possibly political pressure to the state superintendent of schools when she has skillfully made decisions on this topic for years. And for that reason, we ask that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 535, blind or visually impaired children, individualized education programs, orientation, and mobility instruction. This bill provides that any student with a visual impairment receive an orientation and mobility evaluation regardless of any remaining vision. This bill is essentially an unfunded mandate that would require us to hire additional O&M specialists who are in short supply nationally, and we're not quite sure that this has the effect of actually helping other students, as it may delay some of the services of students that really need it, since we would have to be evaluating every child, which we do not currently do. And so we ask that you oppose this bill.
Mrs. Ritchie?
When they read this and they talk about blind or visually impaired, I mean, they're talking about people that have severe handicaps. But the fact is that anybody who wears glasses is visually impaired, because you have to have something to correct your vision. So are they talking about the student in second grade who now has to wear glasses to see the board? Or are they talking about true, so when they talk about visually impaired, because, if you want to get into the nuances,
right,
visually impaired is visually impaired.
I'm not sure if it goes that far, but essentially if you can see functionally, we don't currently put you through this screening. But if you have some way that you cannot see functionally, then you do, and you go through this process. This bill would say even those students that have an impairment but can functionally see would go through this screening.
And that's what I'm talking about. When you got the kid the glasses in the second grade because they kept squinting at the board, they are now visually impaired because they have to wear glasses. You're visually impaired. You're not having your vision as you would. So they would have all of these students doing that. That's not practical.
Is there any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 668, Education Due Process Hearing for Children with Disabilities, Attorney's Fees. This bill provides that an administrative law judge or court could award reasonable attorney's fees to the prevailing parent in a due process proceeding. This bill lacks clarity on how the ALJs will make decisions about reasonable attorney's fees, what needs to be provided. It also removes the ability of the parties to negotiate and resolve these issues without having to have such a judgment. So we ask that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 853, Public School Boards of Education Anonymous Two-Way Text Messaging Tip Program. This bill requires each county board to establish an anonymous text messaging tip program to allow the reporting of an act of bullying, harassment, or intimidation of a student. This bill creates an unfunded mandate for local school systems. We currently have reporting formats in place for bullying, harassment, and intimidation of a student, including an anonymous hotline. In addition to the cost, it's questionable as to whether these text messages would be able to stay permanently anonymous, and we recommend that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
Senate Bill 279, Procurement, Public Work Contracts, Contractor Occupational Safety and Health Requirements. This bill requires the submission of a detailed health and safety plan at the time of a bid on any public works contract or work paid for with public monies valued over $100,000. The bill would require that the detailed health and safety plan be concurrently submitted by all bidders to both the contracting body as well as the Commission of Labor at the time of the bid. This could serve to drive up cost and lower the competition at bid time. We recommend that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
Senate Bill 440, Education Expenditures of Revenue Reporting by County Boards of Education. This bill requires all expenditures of revenues in the budget categories listed in the education article be reported by a county board to MSDE at both the school level and the local education agency level. This is an unfunded mandate that we don't feel would provide any real meaningful information by having to do the additional step of breaking it down at the school level. We recommend that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Mrs. Birch?
I just want to mention that the previous governor had seen something like this done in, I don't know, Arizona or something like that, which they had to pass a law to make it required. And luckily I was able to tell the previous secretary that it was a terrible idea, and so he didn't try to do it. So let's keep trying not to do it.
Is there any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0.
Senate Bill 484, House Bill 848, Anne Arundel County Public Schools Funding and Accountability Transparency Act. This bill requires that only Anne Arundel County Board of Education develop and operate a single searchable website accessible to the public at no cost through the internet. It requires that the Board of Education include the name of the payee receiving an aggregate payment of $25,000 or more in a fiscal year. The searchable website shall allow the user to search data for each fiscal year by the payee receiving payment, by the zip code, and the payee. We ask that you oppose this bill. This bill is unnecessary as we currently have the Spikes Cavell Spotlight on Spendable searchable website that provides almost identical information to what is being requested in this bill. Several other LEAs use this site as well to provide their information. We ask that you oppose this bill.
Mrs. Ritchie?
You know, I like things simple. So I said, well, do we have this? Yes, you said we have it. How easy is it to get to? Well, let me tell you, it's 2 steps. You go to Anne Arundel County Public Schools website. On the left-hand side, you scroll down. It says Bids and Procurement. You push that little button. And when that pops up, you look on the left-hand side. You scroll down to Spotlight on Spending, and you click that little button. Bam, there you are. We already have it. And it's very easy to get to.
Mrs. Nally?
Were the Simon Ayers Senator and Delegate, are they aware that we have this already?
Yes, Mrs. Nally. Myself and Mr. Mosier met with Senator Simon Ayer and Delegate Simon Ayer prior to the filing of this legislation before the General Assembly convened, and we did talk to them about the website, and then after the meeting, Mr. Mosier sent them an email including the website so they could access it directly.
So what Mrs. Ritchie just described, pushing a button, I mean, do they have trouble with that? Okay, just question.
Is there any public comment? Oh, Mr. Jackson?
What was their response? I mean, in the meeting you sat down, you and Mr. Mosier sat down with them, you told them that it was available, you gave them the website. Seriously, what was their response?
Senator Simon Ayer indicated that he would like to see the website, and we sent it to him. And then the next response received is that we had this bill filed.
Thank you.
All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0.
Senate Bill 490, House Bill 923, Capital Grant Program for Local School Systems with Significant Enrollment Growth or Relocatable Classrooms. This bill provides that beginning in the fiscal year 2016, that another capital improvement program will be provided for school systems with a significant number of relocatable classrooms. At best, this would apply to Montgomery County, none of the other 23 LEAs. This would take money away from the general CIP fund, and we ask that you oppose this bill because it could mean less funds for Anne Arundel County Public Schools.
Any board comment? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0.
Senate Bill 505, House Bill 894, Primary and Secondary Education Health and Safety Sugar-Free Schools Act. This bill requires each county board to convene a work group to study the best practices of other jurisdictions regarding the lowering of students' total sugar intake per school meal, and to consider best practices and make recommendations based on, again, reducing the amount of sugar intake in school meals. The United States Department of Agriculture does not require the tracking of sugar. And from Ms. Rissy, who was here earlier, she said the analysis of any meal should be on total calories and nutrients, not a single nutrient. And a work group is unnecessary because we already meet the nutritional guidelines set forth by the USDA. We ask that you, or we recommend that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
Senate Bill 506, Education, Health, and Safety Wellness Committee. This bill requires each county board to establish a wellness committee to discuss issues relating to physical, mental, and social health and well-being of students and make recommendations to the county board based on the committee's recommendations. It also requires that at least 50% of the members be parents of public school students. The committee shall be open to the public and provide opportunity for public testimony. Currently, we have a wellness committee. It is required by federal law as part of the National School and Breakfast Lunch programs. Ours was established in 2006 and works very efficiently. It aligns with the CDC's school health model, and our current composition would not align with this bill. And we feel that this the weight change in having 50% parents represented is probably not in line with the CDC's whole school approach and all of the stakeholders that we have on that committee. As far as the public participation part of that, the Wellness Committee does report to the board, provides a report annually, and certainly public comment can be taken at that as well as any other board meeting if there's a concern about wellness. So for those reasons, we ask that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
Senate Bill 624, Task Force to Study the Expansion of Career and Technology Education in Maryland. This bill does what the title says. It establishes a task force to look at career and technology education in Maryland and make recommendations concerning the policies and practices to make sure that the skills that are taught in career and technology education or technical education programs in Maryland align with what the labor market needs. We recommend that you support this bill as we support such a study.
Mrs. Ritchie?
Do you know if there's a fiscal note attached to this? A lot of times they develop these task force and then they don't put in place the ancillary people that are needed to run these things. There's like no mention of secretary that you need to have to keep minutes of these things. Where are they people going to meet? Who's going to pay for the supplies that need to be done and stuff like that? And I know that a lot of times, and I'm not opposed to this, I mean, but you know, sometimes they make them overburdensome and then they don't really do anything because everybody's scrambling to find the money to do something.
Right, and point well taken. At the time when I put this exhibit together, there was not yet a fiscal note on this. Typically, task forces, they may say, you know, minimal administrative efforts needed or something like that, but I'm not sure. Since then, I didn't look at it this morning to see if there was a fiscal note attached to it. I will tell you, when we whenever we support a task force under Dr. Arlotto's leadership last year, we do make sure that we make a statement about unfunded mandates that could come from the task force. So, you know, we support the examination of this, but if it's going to come back and say, then the task force says we need to do X, Y, and Z, and these are things that we either don't support or are going to create unfunded mandates with no funding streams to support what they're asking us to do, we do try to include that in any of the testimony that we share with the General Assembly.
And some of what they're trying to do, you know, I mean, to marry the careers that are available to what's going on in the schools, I think we kind of do that. Don't we have signature programs in every one of our schools that was based with the community input that talks about, and basically when we did the signature programs, we were looking at ways to ensure that they reflect the community that they're in. You know, so we, you know, like Glen Burnie, you have the hospitality North County, you have the hospitality and stuff, which makes sense because they're right up there in BWI with all the hospitality stuff. You know, I mean, we've sort of done these kind of things, and so it's not, and we have advisory boards where we work very closely with our partners in the business world. We sit on their Chamber of Commerce, you know, I mean, so, you know, we're doing those kind of things now and stuff, and I understand that, and I, you know, some of the things they want to do, especially where they're talking about the next level colleges and stuff like that, and helping to career that. But our Anne Arundel Community College does an excellent job as well. So,
Well, as we know, Anne Arundel County Public Schools is on the forefront with this, and this is a statewide bill, so maybe it's to encourage. Yes.
Mr. Webb?
I see this as being somewhat redundant. I think some other counties do have the economic development studies and things that we do here. I'm not inclined to have another task force or workforce that's going to be doing duplicative work.
Mrs. Birch?
I was just going to say that I was thinking that our role in this would probably be to help support and give the other LEAs some, and community colleges, to be honest, some ideas. I mean, we could be a little bit further along in dual enrollment and things like that than perhaps some of the other LEAs are. But I did want to ask, who is staffing the task force?
I don't know. I can pull I don't think that it was mentioned in there because I typically include that in there, but I can. Do you want that right now, or do you want me to?
No,
look for it
that's
later? Okay. I have the bill in here. Yeah, I will look up
because that's who's
see if there's
absorbing
any
the costs
information
of all those things is whichever agency they assigned as usually they put in there who will staff it, and if they didn't, then that's a big old oversight.
Is there any public comment? All those in favor of supporting this bill? Opposed? Motion passes 6-1.
I will get that answer to you. Senate Bill 639, Teachers, Retirement and Pension Systems, Reemployment of Retirees Exemptions. Currently, retirees from the Maryland State Retirement System have earning limitations when returning to employment from the same school district in which they retired. This bill would provide the superintendent another category to reemploy a maximum of 10 retirees of the teachers' retirement system and exempt them from the reduction of their pension allowance. We do feel that there are times when it is beneficial to the system to reemploy a retiree in areas deemed essential by the superintendent without penalty. And for those reasons, we ask that you support this bill.
Any board discussion? Mrs. Birch?
Was there any discussion as to how the number 10 was arrived at? Because 10 is a very different number in Montgomery County than it is in Dorchester County. I'm just curious because I mean,
right.
10 is huge in Dorchester County.
Right.
In Montgomery County, it's nothing.
I honestly don't know. And the sponsors from Washington County, so they're kind of in the middle. I couldn't give you a good answer on where they came up with 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Washington County has 10 people they want to rehire.
Yeah, correct.
Any public comment? All those in favor of supporting this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
Senate Bill 677, House Bill 1069, Education Professional Development for Teachers and Providers of Early Childhood Education Master Plan. This bill requires MSDE in collaboration with MHEC, with the Maryland Higher Education Commission, to create a master plan to address the critical shortage of qualified professional teachers for our early childhood education. For early childhood education. It also requires a plan for an ongoing professional development system. We think that a master plan to address the critical shortage of qualified educators in early childhood education is important. We currently have difficulty finding ECI teachers at time. This is a hard to fill area. And we find that once ECI teachers are with us, they have difficulties finding ongoing professional activities, development activities that meet the requirements of COMAR to continue their certificate. So for those reasons, we ask that you support this bill.
Mrs. Ritchie?
I'd even support adding pieces on there. I mean, we have critical areas in other places, I'm sure, math and technology and science and so forth, that, how are we going to recruit those minority educators? How are we going to recruit minority educators to different parts of our state and stuff like that? So it goes way beyond just the early elementary, but, I don't write bills. They ask me.
Mr. Webb?
To Ms. Ritchie's point, we do have shortages in a lot of other areas. Are we going to be sponsoring a bill for each and every shortage, or can we get some kind of a generalized bill that deals with shortages in general that we run across over the course of time?
Right. So that's something that we would have to talk with legislators on about doing that. I think that would be something also I would hope that MSD would sort of lead the way on. But I have not seen any other bills to speak to other shortage areas. This is just for early childhood. And as far as us sponsoring bills, we would have to meet with legislators for them to actually sponsor the bill.
Could we go back to them and make a suggestion that they make this a more generalized bill to address all shortages?
Certainly in testimony, we could say, well, we certainly support this. We think that critical shortage areas in all teaching areas, some of which Ms. Ritchie listed, are of concern and should be addressed. For what it's worth, we could put it in testimony that way.
Yeah, that would be my preference.
Mrs. Burge.
All right, this might be a dumb question, but we're saying early childhood education, and then in the support paragraph, you used the acronym ECI.
Early childhood intervention teachers, I believe, is the...
But isn't that different than early childhood education? Because early childhood education could just be a pre-K or a kindergarten, and isn't early childhood intervention more of a special ed type of teacher? So I'm just trying to understand the difference. I mean, I thought there was a difference between an ECI, like a special ed teacher, and just an early childhood teacher. So which one are we talking about? Are we just talking about early childhood teachers, or are we talking about the special ed intervention type of teachers? I don't know.
You are correct. So ECI is kindergarten for those identified special ed students.
Okay.
So it is not only early childhood education, but it has the layer of the special needs of those students.
Okay, but what is the bill addressing?
The early childhood. So perhaps in the support paragraph, that would be my oversight. We should use the over-encompassing term. So we'll make sure that we do that in anything that's published to legislators. That's my oversight.
Okay. I thought it was getting a little specific, and I just was confused by the whole thing.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this bill? All those in favor of supporting this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 679, Primary and Secondary Education, Health and Safety, Chemical-Free Schools Act. This bill prohibits a public school or local school system from purchasing, selling, serving food in a public school during regular school hours that contains ingredients and chemicals that are listed in front of you. I will not try to embarrass myself and pronounce some of those things, but essentially they're looking at artificial colors, sweeteners, flavorings, etc. These food... Mr. Benfer. He threw me off. We ask that you oppose this bill. All the foods that we serve meet the nutritional parameters set forth by USDA, and at this time the additives listed in this bill are not prohibited by FDA or USDA. So we ask that you oppose this bill.
Mrs. Ritchie?
Really? What are they not allowed to eat? Like a piece of cardboard and maybe drink some water? But I mean, this isn't everything you find. And so, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Mr. Webb?
We may have a contingent of foodies on the legislator now. That's that it would be nice if we could, furnish that type of food on an ongoing basis for the entire population, but it's pretty near impossible. Yeah.
I think it's also important, since we just heard from Food Services, that this information would be on the website, correct? So if I'm trying to live chemical free or eat chemical free, I could go to our website and I can look up what's in our school lunch food and just pack a lunch instead.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this bill? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
Senate Bill 699, House Bill 1137, Primary Education State Standardized Assessments Moratorium. This bill provides that beginning with the 2015 school year through the end of the 16-17 school year, the State Board of Education shall place a moratorium on all state standardized assessments in pre-K through second grade. We ask that you oppose this bill. Currently, COMAR requires that we give kindergartners assessment to gauge student readiness. Performance data is needed to know as early as possible which students need early additional support, and this does provide data for early intervention in a child's education.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 727, Anne Arundel County Board of Education Wireless Telecommunication Towers Moratorium and Report. This bill, which applies to Anne Arundel County Public Schools only, prohibits a person from constructing a wireless communication tower on the grounds of a public school in Anne Arundel County from June 1st, 2015 till June 30th, 2016. It also requires that the Board of Education provide the Anne Arundel County delegation of the General Assembly on or before December 31st of 2015 a report including the following items. 1, how the board chooses vendors and contractors for the construction of wireless telecommunication towers on the grounds of public schools. 2, how the board evaluates and chooses the location of the grounds of the public school to be used for the construction of wireless communication towers. 3, whether the revenue received in connection with the construction of wireless telecommunication towers will be allocated for a specific school or the general fund. And 4, a list of all potential locations on the grounds of public schools in Anne Arundel County that satisfy the zoning and other criteria applicable to the construction of wireless communication towers. We recommend that you oppose this bill. First, we're not sure if a stop on building wireless communication towers is completely legal. This board has discussed this topic at length, and there is some specific legal citations that are provided to you in your exhibit that speak to that issue. And second, the report that is required by this bill provides some information that we simply do not have the information to provide. Specifically, the potential locations for the construction of wireless telecommunication towers is not something that this board is aware of until we are approached by a contracted vendor or to construct a tower. For those reasons, we ask that you oppose this bill.
Mrs. Ritchie?
This is a federal regulation, right? The federal has allowed to put on public property. We're a public entity and we own public property.
That's correct.
We've contracted through one bidder, one Milestone, and we have a contract with them. So we don't have multiple contracts with multiple entities.
That's correct.
We don't go out and scout locations. They come to us and say we had an uptick in cell usage and we don't have enough carriers there. We don't have enough whatever their stuff is that they use, towers. We don't have enough stuff to, and calls are being dropped. People are mad. They're not able to get on their wireless devices at peak times because everybody's using them. They want more service in that area. But it's not like every school, we're not bidding out every school because not every school has that problem. It's just whatever the carriers, Sprint, Mobile, Verizon, all those people, whatever they have identified on their little maps that we've seen all over the TV that talks where their coverage is dropped. And then they look for areas, a space, and if a public space is available and one of them has to be a school, then they come to us. And then we enter into the process and we developed a policy related to this, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then it talks about the revenues, because the revenues go back into the general fund. They don't go to the individual school because not every school has the opportunity to have that. Every school can't say, oh yes, we'd like to have a cell tower here so we can get the revenues. So, that piece there. So they should really go to the federal government if they want this rule changed and get schools exempt. Why do they keep telling us? Because we have to comply with the federal law. Because if we don't comply with federal law, can't they take away federal money?
That's correct.
So that Title I school that we just applauded as being a school of distinction, Zippo money. If we decide to go against the federal government and say, no, we're not going to do that, they could take away all of our Title I money and any money, our free and reduced meals money that we use for, the breakfast programs, all that stuff can be gone because because we're going against the federal government.
Funding could be at risk if we do not comply with federal requirements.
Okay. And therefore we couldn't do the achievement gap that we want to, everybody wants to talk about and beat us up about. So then we wouldn't have the monies to do those kind of things. So, okay. Is
there any public comment on this bill? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 5-0.
House Bill 992, Senate Bill 672, Public and Non-Public School Student Diabetes Management Program. This bill requires MSDE to jointly establish guidelines for training of employees to become volunteer trained diabetes care providers. Each county board shall require the public school to establish a student diabetes management program in every school to have employee volunteers available to provide diabetes care to students with diabetes in accordance with the student's management plan during school hours or school events. We ask that you oppose this bill. It creates tremendous workload issues. It's overly burdensome on staff, not to mention that there are numerous technical issues with this bill, specifically related to the Nurse Practice Act, that requires that only emergency medication can be given by a non-licensed individual, which these volunteers would be, if nursing judgment and skills are required. It additionally goes on to say the Nurse Practice Act has the provision that a nurse can say a particular volunteer cannot provide certain services, and this bill does not allow for the same things in which the Nurse Practice Act does. We're concerned that without the proper knowledge and skills, a volunteer not caring for a student on a consistent basis could lead to poorly controlled diabetes and fluctuating blood glucose levels. We ask that you oppose this bill.
Second.
Mrs. Ritchie?
Being a nurse, this is so overreaching, it's not even funny. First off, diabetes isn't something just simple where people can go, oh, just give a shot because of blood sugar and stuff like that. It's really very complex. Number one, we have a nurse in every one of our schools. Is that correct?
We have nurses that service every one of our schools, as I understand it, yes.
Well, I mean, you may have an RN, but they also, that comes in there. So we have somebody who's responsible in every one of our schools. They have, more than likely, probably have these things that are called a logarithm. So if there's an incident that happens, if a child falls and hits their head, there's a certain protocol that they have to follow. If a child has a seizure, there's a certain protocol that they have to follow. If they, there's certain things they have to do. They have them for all these kind of things. So they already have those in there. The parents are probably notified or do notify the school that the student is a diabetic, because they notify them when they have seizures. I mean, we have epileptic students. Are we going to train them in how to do seizure prevention and monitor their blood levels, make sure the Dilantin is okay? Because, they might have a seizure during the day. So, this just makes no sense to do this. And as a nurse, I would not volunteer to do this because it's outside of my realm. And the teachers, what I would suggest maybe, and if it's not in place already, first off, the teachers know if their students have health issues. I would maybe say have them be aware or give them a little placard that talks about hypo and hyperglycemia, low and high blood sugars. And, what they should do, and which they should immediately do, is notify the nurse so they can come in and do a glucometer to find out whether they're hypo or hyper. So, no.
Is there any public comment on this bill? All those in favor of opposing? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 995, Lawn Care Pesticides, Child Care Center, Schools, and Recreational Facilities Prohibition. This bill provides that a person may not apply a lawn care pesticide on grounds of any child care center, a school or recreation center, or any other recreational field that is used by a child under the age of 18. If an emergency application is necessary to eliminate an immediate threat of human health, approval must be sought by the superintendent of public schools. We recommend that you oppose this bill. COMAR already requires every LEA to develop and implement a very specific integrated pest management program. Emergency applications are included in this program, and these programs are approved every year by the Maryland Department of Agriculture. Additionally, on our parents student emergency cards, parents can check whether they want to be notified when pesticides are applied on property. So we ask that you oppose this bill.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 1107, creation of a state debt, Anne Arundel County Broadneck High School Fieldhouse. This bill authorizes the creation of state debt not to exceed $250,000. The proceeds to be used for Broadneck High School Fieldhouse. We recommend that you support this bill. This bond bill would facilitate needed improvements to the fieldhouse at Broadneck High School.
Any board discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor of supporting the bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 1116, public school student suicide intervention required procedures. Essentially, this bill provides scripted suicide intervention requirements, and it requires that on or before July 1st, 2016, MSDE with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene develop a crisis intervention checklist to carry out the provisions of this bill. We recommend that you oppose this bill, as it's not advisable for legislators to determine the best way for mental health professionals to judge suicidal behavior. We already have strong protocols for suicidal tendencies and behaviors in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and we feel that the scripted nature of this particular legislation would be limiting on that.
Mrs. Ritchie?
I can't remember the acronym, but we've just done a lot of this training. Ms. Pelham, you might no, can't. It begins with a Q, I think, for QPR. Yeah, where right that we've done a lot of this in-house training, and we've also done training and had things for public that talks about how to address people and how to talk to people and how to recognize some signs and symptoms of somebody who may be contemplating or having some difficulty, adjusting and stuff like that, and maybe causing harm. So we're already doing stuff like that already to address that. And again, this is delving into medical issues for which people are not qualified, because it's not, mental health is not a real easy thing to understand to begin with. And we should have things that people are more open to talk about, because we don't like to talk about things like that. But they're more open to talk about, but also more easily to recognize and then report to the appropriate people.
Any public comment? All those in favor of opposing this bill? Motion passes 7-0-0.
House Bill 1141, Education Park Testing Exemption for Children with Disabilities. This bill provides that a child with a disability shall be exempt from park testing or its equivalent unless the parent or guardian of the child and the administration of the school that the child attends have agreed that the child may take the assessment. This does not seem compliant with the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and students with disabilities pursuing a Maryland diploma do need to pass Park Algebra 1 and Park English 10 assessments as part of their graduation requirements. So exempting them would not be favorable for them to meet those graduation requirements. We recommend that you oppose this bill.
Mr. Webb?
I think some of the requirements we have right now are unrealistic for some of our disabled children, so I will be voting to support that.
Is there any public comment? Mrs. Birch?
I just want to clarify. If they want to get a Maryland diploma, though, they have to pass these tests.
Park Algebra 1 and Park English 10.
Right. Those two.
And this bill would exempt them unless the school administration and the parent have agreed to allow them to take the assessment. And then it would have to be in their IEP as well.
Okay. So right now it's a requirement for the Maryland diploma to pass those two tests.
Yes.
Okay. So if they were exempt from taking them, they couldn't get a diploma.
Yes. That's correct.
Okay. So we'd actually be doing them on that sense a disservice, because they could only get a certificate then.
it would be a disservice in their ability to obtain a Maryland graduation certificate.
They would only be able to get a certificate instead of a diploma.
Correct.
Okay.
But if they do choose to take it now and don't pass it, they would also still get a certificate. They wouldn't be.
We're going a little out of my realm of
Okay.
expertise, so I'm going to have to defer to. I don't know whose tag you're at, but I don't have the answer to that question.
It is currently a state requirement that the students must pass for graduation the PARCC assessments in Algebra 1 and English 10. They, if they are unable to pass the test itself, they have the option of either a combined score to meet the graduation requirement or going through the bridge projects. And many students do end up going through the bridge project. We have thousands every year that go through the bridge project and still meet the mandate of graduation. But they can't qualify to go into the bridge project program unless they've previously taken and failed the test. So if they've never gotten a chance to take and fail the test, they therefore can never reach the goal of getting to the other graduation requirement of passing it through the bridge. So that's part of the reason that we oppose this.
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto.
Mrs. Birch?
That was going to be my question to clarify. There is an alternative pathway, but you have to have attempted the tests first. So you can graduate without passing the exams, but not without having attempted to pass the exams.
Correct. You reach the passing status through either a combined score or completing the bridge project for that exam in the areas of which you did not meet the qualifications.
But you cannot complete the bridge project unless you have attempted to take the PARCC test.
Not only attempted, but have failed it.
Okay.
Part of the state rule is not only that you attempted, but you failed to pass it. Therefore, you now qualify for the bridge project.
If the students were exempt from taking the PARCC test, they would not qualify for the bridge projects.
Correct.
Okay.
Mrs. Ritchie?
And as I understand, the bridge projects are very specific to the area that they failed. So if, for instance, in science, they failed the part of the subject that has to do with biology, reproduction, or something like that, their project would be specifically for that, because they may have passed another piece of it, so they don't have to do it for the whole thing. It's very, and actually it's really in depth. I mean, and students, from my understanding, some students that have taken those really wish they'd studied a little bit harder and passed the test, because the bridge project is a lot of work. It's not a day in the park. I mean, they have to do a lot of work and meet with, it's on both ends of the spectrum. So
you're absolutely correct, Ms. Ritchie. Each of the bridge projects is student specific. It's developed through a mentor that the student is assigned, and it is done on a one-to-one basis with a mentor. A teacher from that building or others. We do some of this work over the summer as well, but those students meet those requirements, and it is rigorous, and it turns out to be really good work for the students to produce in particular areas that they had shortcomings during the regular course of taking that class.
Is there any public comment on this bill? All those in favor of opposing this bill? All those opposed to opposing the bill? Motion passes 5-2.
House Bill 1159, Education Student Organization Sale of Beverages with Caffeine. This bill allows students to sell beverages with caffeine, including the accompaniments, cream, sugar, etc., so long as it is provided, so long as it is first to provide students with an opportunity to learn how to operate a business. We recommend that you oppose this bill. The bill violates the approved Maryland nutrition standards that do not allow caffeine to be served to any student at any grade level during the school day.
Mr. Webb?
I must say I'm a bit bummed out by this bill, because having been one of the founders of the Panther Cafe, which has been in existence for going on 10 years now, I guess, at Annapolis High School, one of the things we did implement was a barista training program there, because there were significant jobs out there to be had if you were a trained barista, and we donated the equipment to actually train the children on that. So this bill, if I understand it correctly, they wouldn't be able to do anything like that kind of training in the schools. if I'm reading this right.
If the substance that they were serving, if the coffee that they were serving was caffeinated, they could have non-caffeinated.
So we could have non-caffeinated lattes and espressos, but not caffeinated.
That's my understanding.
I'm going to have to oppose this one too.
Mrs. Burge?
Actually, you're getting the opposite. This bill would allow the.
It would allow it.
Right. Apparently, it's not you're not allowed to sell. You're not allowed to sell products with caffeine right now, and this bill would allow it. So currently, you're not.
Yeah,
which I agree with, because more and more studies are coming out now that children really shouldn't have caffeine until they're 18.
Yeah, but if you go right
fact,
across the street, you'll see them lined up at Dunkin' Donuts before they come to school. So what's the point?
Should the school be providing the thing that they're not supposed to have? I mean, it's apparently really bad for their brains for them to have caffeine before they're 18. More and more studies are coming out. So, I mean, I would support the opposed position, because I don't think there's a reason for kids to have caffeine at all.
There are a lot of coffee drinkers in this room. I don't think their brains have been impaired. I would hope not.
It's about a developing brain. It's about a developing brain, and until they're 18, they can't. Their brains and their growth their development can't handle it. So, I would support it, because it's not healthy for underage people to have caffeine.
I just wanted to know if the sweeteners were going to be chemical free.
Depends if that other bill passes. Okay.
Any public comment? Right. All those in favor of opposing this bill? All of those opposed to opposing this bill? So motion fails 4-3.
Unless there's any questions about Section 2 or Section 3 of the packet, that concludes the position on the bills that we need you to take positions on.
I don't think so, but I do want to mention that I definitely want to thank you for your crazy 4 months of life right now, or 3 months, I guess, and all the work you've been doing. And I also heard that when I was at MABE on Monday, they were bragging about some of our staff who had to testify on some bills, specifically Teresa Tudor and Kathy Lane. So I just want to thank them as well for what I've heard was several hours of testimony.
Thank you, Mrs. Korbelak. Mrs. Kathy Lane spoke to the charter schools bill and did an excellent job serving on a panel with other people around the state to speak in opposition of that bill. And Ms. Tudor spoke to the post-Labor Day START bill. And Ms. Tudor and I got there at 11:15, she's gone, to get a seat. And we left at 8 o'clock when she finally spoke. And there were still 4 more bills to be heard after that time. So we didn't even stay for the entire thing. So yes, there's much appreciation to the staff. And in addition, I was going to say this for the end, but while we go through, I mean, these positions cannot be created without a lot of help from everyone in this building and, even in schools, to tell us how this really impacts them. So in addition to the public testimony we get, they help us so much with the written testimony.
Mrs. Ritchie.
So not only did you put in a 9-hour day, probably a little longer than that, but you did it on a day when everybody else was off because it snowed, I believe.
No, it was actually last Thursday was that hearing.
Yeah, wasn't that a snow day? For the
Oh, I just thought we were working. I don't know. From until April, we're working.
You are. But a lot of your colleagues were doing, they weren't in buildings. They were working probably, but they weren't in buildings. But
Right.
I mean, just saying that the school system was closed, but still people who could have not come into work that day could have stayed at home and done their work in their pajamas instead were down in Annapolis.
That's correct.
Ms. Chaudhry.
I just want to piggyback on what everybody else is saying. Thank you so much. I personally saw you last week at the State House, so I know that you've been working hard. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank the staff that's working with you, because I know it's really hectic right now at the State House with all these bills.
Dr. Arlotto.
Yes, thank you to the board for your accolades of Jessica and the team. They do work really hard. This is This is intricate work. I do want to thank the board for taking time to go through this. This is important. This as these bills move forward, it dictates the work that we do, not only in Anne Arundel County, but around the state. So I think it's important work. As members of the board, I appreciate that. We appreciate you really taking it seriously and working through the process with us. I do want to also say thank you to Jessica. Not only is this a difficult time for her with regard to legislation, but she continues to move all of our policies forward. I want to thank the Board Policy Committee for the work that they do. If you remember in January when Jessica sat before you, she reminded you that as we went into the legislative session, the policy work would begin to drop off. Well, just before you today were 10 policies. The work hasn't dropped off. She continues to work. She continues to work incredibly hard. She is brilliant, and we're lucky to have her. And so thank you.
I'll sit here a little longer.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a review item, 5.01, Corcoran Middle School Telecommunication Transmission Facility. We don't have a presentation, but is there any board questions or comments? Mrs. Birch?
I just want to say I was at the meeting at Corcoran with staff and the community, and I am so darn excited about this sign tower. If you saw it, I don't know if we can show it or not, but the potential for this one to be a logo sign, I think is just really exciting. I think it's a great idea. I think it works great. And we were talking to the PTSA president, who said that the cell phone reception there in the community is terrible. She could vouch for it, and they really need it. And we were told that Milestone had gone to quite a few private property owners in the area, and no one was either had the space or was willing to work with them. And so this worked out to be a good spot for it. And it's not really that close to the school or anything else, but yet it's going to be a way. I don't know if it's hard to find Corcoran Middle School. I mean, if you've ever looked for it. And this is going to be a way for people to find Corcoran Middle School, because it's going to say Corcoran 100 feet in the sky, and people will be able to find it. And I just think that's really exciting.
Is there any public comment? So the next step, as we understand it, is notification will go out to the community and the school, and on March 25th they'll try to have a community meeting if we're done snowing and icing by then. Okay. All right. So the public has time to weigh in at that point. All right. Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, I just want to say to Milestone, thank you all very much. To the administration, thank you all very much for staying the course. We took some time to get our policies together and regulations together, and I appreciate you. I know it's been a rough time, but you all have done it with pride and professionalism, and I appreciate it. And I know we do appreciate it, so thanks.
Thank you. The next item is 5.02, award of contracts. This is also a review item. Are there any board questions? Is there any public comment? All right, thank you. And the last item on the agenda today are consent items 6.01 through 6.05. Do I have a motion to bundle these and move them from information to action? Second. All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the Board of Education award contracts as listed on today's agenda, 6.01, 6.05 inclusive.
Is there any board comments or questions? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0-0. I just have a couple of announcements. The next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, March 18th at 7 p.m. The next Board Policy Committee meeting is Wednesday, March 11th at 8:30 a.m. The next Board Budget Committee meeting is April 1st at 12:30 p.m. in Conference Room 2B. And I believe we have rescheduled the redistricting meeting again for March 10th for the community information session. So, Mrs. Nally.
Yes, I would like to move that we go into closed session to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
All those in favor? Thank you. Our meeting's now adjourned.